Jesse Foster welcomes you to Father Nation, where other dads illuminate your path to become a better father. Prepare to enter into the man cave.
And welcome to Father Nation. This is Jesse Foster. Father Nation is a place where I interview dads about their experiences as a dad so that they can share their wisdom with you. Let their journey illuminate your path. Hearing about the failures, the successes of their journey as a dad can help you emulate successful strategies and avoid their mistakes. Father Nation today is made in part by Al Cole from CBS Radio and his show People of Distinction. And today I'm excited to have author Jeff Kinney on the show. Jeff is a cartoonist, and he's probably best known for his series Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which has also been made into 3 films. And in fact, he had a part in the last film, so I guess he's not only an author, but he's now an actor. And maybe less known, but he's also a game designer. And he has a website, Pop Tropica, and we'll get more into that a little bit later. Jeff is a father of 2 sons, and he's from the state of Maryland. So Jeff, thank you so much for coming on Father Nation. And just a little more about yourself, your family, and maybe how did you get the idea of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
Sure. Thanks for having me. This is a nice program. I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm Jeff Kinney, and I live in a small town, Plainville, Massachusetts, a town of about 8,000 people, where I'm building a bookstore in the center of town. So that's an exciting new venture. I have a few different jobs, creative director of a virtual world, as you mentioned, Pop Tropica, and I'm a writer and a film producer as well. The way that I started off with Diary of a Wimpy Kid was I spent a number of years trying to get syndicated as a cartoonist. My real dream was to become a newspaper cartoonist, but that didn't work out. My work wasn't professional grade, and so I had to find another way to get my cartoons into print. I came up with the idea for Diary of a Wimpy Kid and worked on it for about 8 years before I showed it to anyone. And when I did, an editor liked it, a guy named Charlie Kochman. He liked what I wrote, and the rest is history. And
your son now, your oldest son, he's about 12 years old, is that correct?
That's right. I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, yeah.
So he's about to be Greg Heffley's age.
Right. Yeah, that hits me sometimes. You know, it's at first, I was writing these books about my middle school memories, and then at the time when my first books came out, my kids were very young, and now they're sort of growing into the ages of the characters. So it's been an interesting progression.
Yeah, as I was reading through your first book of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I felt like I could really relate to Greg Heffley in a lot of ways. And did you write Greg as a character kind of from your own experiences, or can you tell us a little more about that?
I did, and when I was writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I was actually thinking of an adult audience. I was trying to write something like The Wonder Years or A Christmas Story, a story told by a grown-up that would appeal to grown-ups. And so my publisher actually acquired it with that kind of an audience in mind, and over time they changed their mind and decided that this would be better for kids. So that was a big shock to me, but I've always written for adults.
Yeah, so dads out there, if you haven't checked it out, check out Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's a pretty enjoyable read. There's some cartoons in there, but I found it very, very funny. It almost brought me back to middle school.
That's good. That's what it's supposed to do.
In that series, you've written about 9 or 10 books. Do you have a personal favorite?
I do. The last book is called The Long Haul. It's an orange one, and that's the book where I really started to get good at this. I have always tried to write jokes. You know, I try to get as many jokes in onto a page as possible. Now, I've never been overly concerned with narrative, but for The Long Haul, I think I was able to achieve both. You know, each page is funny, but there's a good narrative too. So I felt like I really grew as a writer, and I hope that the next book is as good.
Well, just to put a few hypothetical questions to you as a dad, with your son, especially at age 12 now, if you found out that your son had to eat some really disgusting cheese on the ground at school, maybe he was getting bullied, as a dad, how would you handle that?
Well, I'd be outraged by that. I'd be more than outraged by that. When I was growing up, a lot of things happened like that, and in fact, that idea came from some near real life experiences. But I think that kids are a little more protected these days. In most cases, I think that you would hear about something like that from a teacher, but I'd be, I would that would really set me off, because of course that would really traumatize a kid.
Yeah, it makes one start to think about homeschooling or something, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah. And there are a lot of kids who get bullied, and their parents have difficult decisions to make, because it's if your kid has a reputation of as a victim, it can be difficult for them to change that identity. And if enough happened to my kids, I think I'd probably move away or send them to a different school.
All right. Hypothetically, if your middle school boy wants to start wrestling, maybe he's a little on the scrawny side. He asks you for a weight set, and you know that maybe he's not that committed, but he's asking for it. Do you get it for him?
Oh yeah, I would. I indulge my kids' interests a lot, and even if I know that they won't, last long. But my younger son wanted to get into baseball, and he got all of the gear, and then he got the bag that goes with it, which was expensive, and he abandoned baseball a few weeks later. So I could see myself overcommitting to my kids. All
right, your son chases a bunch of kindergartners with the worm. And,
Greg does, right?
Yeah.
And
if your son, if he loses his patrol privileges at the middle school, what would you do though as a dad to punish, especially if he lied about it?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think that in that case, since I did something so similar in school, I threw snowballs at my friend, and we got caught by some younger kids, and I let my friend take the fall for that one. I could definitely see, I'm pretty good about recognizing things that I've done before, and if I've done something, similar before, then I can put myself in my kid's shoes, and I don't get too angry. So usually I don't, I don't end up punishing my kids a whole lot, but dishonesty is, it's not something I like at all, but, we usually, but I've been dishonest myself as a kid. So I try to balance that in my judgment.
All right. And kind of a last, Diary of a Wimpy Kid inside question. As a dad, have you at Christmas time ever, are you more of a Twisted Wizard video game giver, or do you ever give a red sweater?
This Christmas I bought my kids a bunch of books, so I think that I'm more of a sweater giver in a way. The kids are like, boy, this is an awful lot of books, but the occasional video game is thrown in, so I think that kids have a lot of fun with that.
And you're listening here to Father Nation with author Jeff Kinney. And Jeff, let's talk about Poptropica, the website that you have created for kids. First off, just tell us about what it is exactly and how you created it.
Okay, Poptropica is a virtual world for kids, as you said, and it's something that I developed with the team. We wanted to give kids an immersive experience and give them a chance to explore life in all of its bounty, and mythology, and 1920s era bank heists, and microbiology, and just about any kind of thing that we could think of that kids might be edified and entertained by. We try to throw it at them, so that's been really fun. It really balances my Wimpy Kid life, because Diary of a Wimpy Kid is sort of it's multi-dimensional in its way, but it's still what it is a cartoon drawing about middle schoolers, or cartoon drawings about middle schoolers. But Poptropica allows me to really spread my wings and do different things each time out.
And Poptropica is meant to be kind of like a safe place for kids to play games as well.
Absolutely, yes, it is. There's no way kids can contact each other or say anything inappropriate. So it's just a way for kids to play, sometimes together, most of the time alone.
Yeah, it seems like the internet, it's kind of like the Wild West. Anything goes, and a lot of bad things out there. So Poptropica sounds like it's a good site to have your kid on where you know exactly there's not going to be anything too inappropriate.
Absolutely. Nothing inappropriate at all.
All right, Jeff, let's kind of turn the corner here and talk about your experiences as a dad now.
Okay.
A dad of 2 sons, and age 9 and 12. What's your biggest struggle today as a dad?
My biggest struggle is finding time, setting aside time for my kids. I have about 5 different jobs, and it's hard to it's hard to slow down. There are a lot of demands. Of course, we all carry around phones and devices that make us accessible to everyone else. So my biggest struggle is making sure I carve out a satisfying amount of time for my kids each week. And that's definitely my biggest struggle.
Yeah, time is definitely a big struggle for a lot of working dads. Again, This is Father Nation with Jesse Foster. You're listening with Jeff Kinney, and he's the author of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Jeff, let's talk about advice. Now, have you ever been given a piece of advice from maybe another dad, maybe it's a relative or friend, that has made you into a better dad?
I remember seeing, I recently saw Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which was a great movie from, I think, the 1980s. And in it, John Candy says, like your work, love your wife. And I think that can be extended or modified to, like your work, love your family. I think that's good advice for just about anybody. We all, a lot of Americans, especially have a really strong work ethic in it. You can fall in love with your work too much and not realize that your time with your family is really precious.
If we don't like our work, we can come home and bring it with us, and then That's never a good thing.
Right.
Well, how about as far as maybe your biggest failure? If you have any big failures that you would like to share with us, or just maybe a daddy dud, but something you learned.
Yeah, I think sometimes I'm not patient with my kids, and sometimes when you're impatient with your kids, it adds fuel to the fire. It adds to the stress of a situation. I was thinking of a day when I gave my son the key to the front door and said, run in and get this thing, and then my son really struggled with opening the door with the key, which to me was really easy, of course, but he, the key was caught in some sort of way. And so the tension really rose as he got more and more frustrated or kind of ashamed that he couldn't open the door. And then I got frustrated with him. And of course I was able to open it very easily. So that, would probably made him feel more badly about himself. So, there are times like that when I have to step back and say, boy, I need to slow down, and there's no need for me to be so impatient. So times like that, I really try to, I try to reflect and correct myself the next time.
Yeah, oftentimes as dads, I think if something we see our sons doing or not doing that we think should be easy, it's easy to get frustrated and maybe react too much. And like you said there, it's easy to make a child actually feel really bad or really stupid, depending on our attitude with it, and that can have pretty negative impacts. So I think always trying to stay patient is always a plus. I mean, it's good to have urgency in life at times too, but it's good to have patience for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jeff, let's talk about resources. Is there any book that you've used, or have you gone to a seminar, or maybe just advice from someone else? But is there any resource that you've used to become a better dad?
Well, that's a good question. I've never really. I don't read a lot of parenting books. I doubt that many fathers do. Meanwhile, my wife's got shelves of books on how to help your kids be the best that they can be. So I can't think of a resource that's ever really worked for me. I might throughout the course of this conversation think of something, but I can't think of a resource that's really directed at parents or dads that's helped me along my path.
And as far as writing, and when you write Diary of a Wimpy Kid, you began that series a while ago, back even before your kids were born. Is that correct?
That's correct. I started in 1998. My first child was born in 2002.
All right, so maybe it's different today, but When you write it now, do you think as a dad, or do you still try and put yourself in a position as a middle schooler?
I try to think of myself as a middle schooler, but humor comes from all different facets. We, as parents, do things that are embarrassing or wrong-headed, and I try to fold those things into my books. For example, in my next book, I'm going to write about like technology-free Fridays or something like that, where you try to eliminate all technology in the house. And I think that there's a lot of humorous potential there. It's that there's a lot, there are a lot of things that can go wrong where you need technology. So I think I'm always trying to draw from my experiences, on both sides of the fence, both as a kid and as a parent.
Do you have any special quotes as a dad, like maybe a quote on fatherhood, or maybe a quote that you've heard or read that you'd like to share with Father Nation today?
Yeah, I think there's a quote. It's not really about fatherhood, but one that was very especially meaningful for me, and I hope my kids pick up on it, which is Benjamin Franklin quote, which is, well done is better than well said. I think that a lot of times we tell other people all the things we're going to do, and then we don't achieve them, and then we're sort of ashamed of ourselves, and it sort of limits our ambitions, I think, in a way. So I hope that my kids will speak in action, and not just in words.
Yeah, Ben Franklin is a quote machine for sure.
All right. Yeah, tell me about it.
Well done is better than well said. I think that's very true. I think actions do speak louder than words. And it's easy to talk big, but it's better to walk big.
Right.
And I guess as a dad, we can really imprint that onto our kids to do, not just say. I think that's a great skill that would carry over throughout their lives if we can just emphasize that as dads to our kids. So to do and not just say. That's great stuff. Jeff, what do you think the world would be like if all dads were perfect?
That's a great question. What would the world be like? It would be a boring place. I mean, I think that humor comes from imperfection, and I think of myself, and I think of myself as a pretty cool dad and a pretty good dad. But I think that my kids probably see me through a different lens. They'll be embarrassed by me, or they'll find me to be insufferable, especially as I get older. So I think if all dads were perfect, I don't think that would be a very fun place to live.
Yeah, I guess it would no longer be planet Earth.
Right.
Jeff Kinney, his website, wimpykid.com. If you want to check it out. If you haven't read the books, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I would highly recommend it. It's very entertaining for adults. For me, it took me back to middle school. I felt like I could relate to the main character, Greg Heffley, very well. And I think you will enjoy it, Father Nation. Jeff, let's talk about the title, though, Wimpy Kid.
Yeah.
First off, I guess, why did you choose the title Wimpy? And then also, wimpy is usually a negative adjective, right? No one really wants to be a wimp.
Right.
And if your child maybe is called a wimp, maybe at school, as a dad, how would you deal with that?
If my kid was called a wimp at school, I think that nerd and wimp and things like that have really changed over time. My son right now who's actually an athletic kid. He likes to call himself a nerd, and I'm sort of surprised by that. But I think that the meaning of those words has really changed over time. It's sort of become chic in a way, or maybe kids are just learning to celebrate their own identities in a different way. So if my kid was called a wimp, I'd be, if they were hurt by that, I'd be hurt for them. But I think a lot of kids seem more comfortable with their those kinds of identities than they did when I was growing up.
All right, Jeff, let's talk about, again, Pop Tropica real quick. Is there a website for that? Is it Pop Tropica?
Yeah, it's poptropica.com. There's also an app for it.
And if that's available on the iTunes?
Yeah, it's available in the App Store, correct.
And again, the other website is wimpykid.com. And you were named a few years ago as one of Times Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Did that change your life in any way?
It didn't really, other than, that sometimes it comes up in an interview and somebody asks me how I feel about it. Materially, not at all, but it's been fun to be able to put that, in the bio of my books and things like that. So it's, you have to kind of laugh because I'm not even the most influential person in my own house, but it's fun to have been named that. I'll put it to you that way.
All right. And our final question for Jeff today. What do you think is one habit that makes you a better dad?
A better dad than other dads, or a better dad than I should be other dads?
just for just comparing yourself to yourself. Like, what makes you as a better dad compared to what you would be if you didn't do this habit?
I see. I think that it's when I can say to my kids, I understand, is that when something goes wrong with them, when they've failed in some way in life, if I can say to them, I understand because I've been there. I think empathy is maybe one of the most important qualities, not just as a dad, but as a human being. And I think that if there's one thing I hope for my kids is that they're kind. I think that kindness is the one thing that I would wish for them when they grow up.
Kindness is also perhaps one of the things that is needed in middle schools around the nation. If middle schools were more kind, there would be perhaps a lot less problems in middle school.
I agree.
All right. Well, this is Father Nation with Jesse Foster. You're listening today with author Jeff Kinney. And Father Nation, again, is where we interview dads about their experiences as a dad so that you can learn from their wisdom and become a better dad yourself. Father Nation is also now available on the iTunes Radio Network, thanks in part to Al Cole from CBS Radio, who has his show, People of Distinction. And today, Jeff Kinney is definitely a person of distinction with the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. Jeff, we thank you so much for coming on Father Nation.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Father Nation is brought to you today by the YoungDrivenFatherGuide.com. If you're a father that just needs a little more organization in your life, a little more structure, go to the YoungDrivenFatherGuide.com. Again, the YoungDrivenFatherGuide.com. Mention Father Nation and get 10% off.
Hey, it's Al Cole, host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, throwing the spotlight on another one of my guests of distinction, this time taking an awesome step forward to great fatherhood in our world with the outstanding work of Jesse Foster. Jesse's the creator of the Father Nation podcast, a show to showcase dads and their committed professional work to help other dads too. Jesse interviews fathers from all over the world to learn from them their deep, dedicated, and sometimes even playful experiences as dads so that they can share their amazing wisdom with you. In Jesse's own words, let the journeys of dads featured on my Father Nation podcast illuminate your path as a dad too. What could be better? Hey. And if you like the message, I want you to run to this website and support Jesse's Father Nation podcast and the great work of all dads worldwide. Go to fathernation.com. That's www.fathernation.com. And remember, hearing about the successes, the aha moments, and even the occasional failures of other dads can help you avoid their mistakes, emulate their successful strategies, and take action yourself to become a better dad. So again, run to this website, fathernation.com. That's www.fathernation.com. Jesse Foster's Father Nation podcast, helping you to imprint the kind of legacy in your family that you desire to create.